Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into Fantasy Football University, FFU. I'm Mr. Bill DeCousis. I'm here with Mr. Tom Lang, coming to you yet again in the off season. Mr. Lang, you ready for some mock draft action?
Let's do it. We are doing a mock draft show today.
Yes, we are. As promised, we're doing some special mock draft show. We'll begin doing the full 15 rounds of the situation. We thank everybody for watching our other videos on draft strategy, on other stuff that we've got coming up in the off season. Mr. Lang, why don't you set us up while I pull up our situation here?
Yeah, so basically our right now our draft is a full PPR. It is technically it's a 12 team, 12 rounds. The setup is a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. Um, then we got the wide receiver, running back, flex with the tight end. Actually, one thing I do want to add
Those-
is a defense.
Okay.
Um, so we could see where these defenses are going to be lining up in our
So it's single
draft.
flex. Single flex.
Yep, single flex. Yep, but I want to add. I'm going to be adding the defense position to this so we can show where we will potentially draft a defense. But the cool thing about what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be giving you guys what our strategy is up front, right? So in this draft, I'm drafting at the fourth position. Billy is drafting at the seventh position. And my draft strategy is a running back heavy early strategy, right? Billy's draft strategy is zero running back, technically a wide receiver draft or pass catching draft strategy early start. Now, sometimes it doesn't look so pretty, right? Like it doesn't look the six rounds go in, you're like, oh, this is rough. But it's not, again, I always say it's not where you start, it's where you finish. So you have to really assess your draft and see where your your players are draft, falling in line when it comes down to your rosters, and then just reassess after a couple rounds and have to draft some of these players to fit your role, right? So I'm ready to get into it when you are. Like I said, I'm going running back. I'm going running back, and to start, and we're gonna assess from there. Billy is going zero RB strategy.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention just before you start the draft on that, just one disclaimer is just for the sake of just presenting how we would go about this, we're happy to tell people, hey, we're going into the draft like this. And by the way, we're doing this on Sleeper, so all the positions that are not us is taken up by AI on Sleeper. Sleeper's amazing. But from the disclaimer I wanted to offer is that you, generally speaking, and almost, in fact, the way you should be doing it, you don't go into a draft saying, this is my strategy. You have to stay water. You have to react to what it
Correct.
is. So just for example, and my position notwithstanding, not saying it would ever happen, but let's just say you were in the 10th position and you go into the draft saying, I'm going a wide receiver strategy. But then for some reason, nine wide receivers go off the board. I think you should change your strategy at that point. I
Yeah,
think I
no,
think
and
we
and
I think we
again,
all get it. You know what I mean?
100%.
Like so
We all get it. The reason again behind this is for us to show that there's systems in place and for us to basically
viable strategies
authenticate
exist.
what our drafts will look like if we go with a specific strategy.
Right. So we're gonna try to do that and it should be interesting. So
Yep.
I'm ready when you are and
All
we can
right,
get this
and here we
underway.
go.
Alrighty.
So first overall pick, Justin Jefferson goes, Jamar Chase goes, Bijan Robinson goes, and I am on the clock. Again, this is a full point PPR draft. So, like I said, I
Single
am going,
flex.
yep, single flex. And basically, where I said in my position is to draft running back. Now, I am based on tiers. I have Saquon and Bijan and Gibbs technically in the same tier, but I will have to go Saquon in this position for this pass catching and his volume that he's going to be receiving, and him being clean with his great offensive line in front of him. Then after that, Jameer Gibbs goes, CeeDee Lamb goes, and Billy
Uh,
is on the clock with his zero RB strategy.
yes. So just to mention that, and this is probably a great position to do this zero RB strategy. So my pick here, to me, it's easy. I'm going to be picking Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now I want to point out that
Yep. I know
I
what you're gonna
would
say.
I would have been going Puka if the Matt Stafford situation wasn't getting a little hairy in Los Angeles. And I also want to point out that if I wasn't declaring a priori before the draft that we were going zero RB, that I would be going a running back here, and I'd be having a conversation between John C. and Christian McCaffrey. That having been said, we'll make it easy. I'm going to go wide receiver, and like I said, I'm Amon Ra over Puka until the Matt Stafford situation works itself out. So we're going Amon Ra. So as it comes around, I'll describe the picks. Tommy, is there any way you could set the timer to longer than a minute so that we could
Yep.
talk about the stuff?
I just did that.
All
I don't
right.
know why
So
I did it update it. Yeah,
all
you're
right.
good.
So after Amon Ra, Nico Collins, Puka Nakua, Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors, Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, Devon Achan, Brock Bowers is now off the board, Jonty Irving, and now I am back on the clock. So when you go zero RB, or in some cases you go hero RB. The idea is you want to build up your wide receiver core specifically. You want to take a high end quarterback. You want to take a high end tight end. So looking at the wide receivers in terms of what I know in my tiers exists. So I'm not as high. I'm like lukewarm on Drake London. AJ Brown currently has the hamstring situation, which I'm a tad worried about. You got Lad McConkey, which we just found out the Keenan Allen situation. I'm a little bit lower there. JSN, who we're low on. Tyreek Hill, who we're low on. T. Higgins, I'm feeling good about Garrett Wilson, but maybe I could grab him on the way back. Just glancing through quarterbacks, I think it's a little bit early for the Josh Allen situation, although that'd be perfectly fine for a zero RB strategy. Looking at tight ends here, um, I think it's probably about right. I could probably go Trey McBride on here, which is I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to go Trey McBride here just to hammer that point home, take the positional advantage. After Trey McBride, Drake London's off the board, Josh Jacobs, and now Mr. Lang is on the board.
Yeah, so here we are. We're talking pass catching running backs that I'm looking to capitalize on. There are two right now. One is not really a typical aforementioned pass catching running back. But I have these guys in pretty much the same tier range for full point PPR. Chase Brown is, I think, the player that I'm going to be leaning towards. Let's just say it this way. If I didn't have this strategy in place and I was trying to more of a balance, I'd probably go more of a Lad McConkey or potentially AJ Brown in this position right here. But that being said, strategy is running back heavy in the beginning. I will be leaning towards Chase Brown to pair with Barkley as my RB2. After that, Josh Allen goes, AJ Brown goes, Taylor goes, McConkey goes, Jackson goes, Brees Hall goes, and I am back on the clock. And this situation actually is the player that I was leaning towards, but I wanted more of a reception back. And the guy that is here is Kyron Williams. I think, based on the contract extension, it's going to be a great role. I am toying a little bit with Alvin Kamara because I know he's not going to be back on the back end. And I will say this with a heavy running back position, strategy to start. Sometimes you don't want to go past three really heavy running backs because then you're going to start falling back and you're going to start really losing the trend of the wide receiver and the good wide receiver that can have a nice baseline for you. So this probably will end my potentially will end my unless I want more depth my running back strategy position. But Kyron Williams is going to be more of the structured running back. He can be my RB2 and Brown could be my flex play in it week in, week out kind of thing. So I'm going to go Kyron Williams with this pick right here.
Ugh, and Garrett Wilson went off. That's what I was hoping fell to me.
Yeah.
So after Tommy Garrett Wilson went, JSN went, and now I'm back on the clock. That's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate. I was excited about that as an opportunity. So, um, checking out the wide receiver core here. So, We've got Tyreek, we've got T. Higgins, we've got Terry McLaurin, who, the situation there, Marvin Harrison, Mike Evans, who we're feeling better about considering we're lower now. We're falling on Godwin after his situation. I've already grabbed my top tier tight end, so I have a positional advantage there. Quarterback, it's a little bit early to be taking some of the other guys who I'm going to be looking to be taking. So I'm going to stick with the wide receiver situation. I'm considering I'm not as high on Tyreek Hill. I know the Bengals are going to try to throw the ball every play. I'm going to take lots of shots on wide receiver in this draft, so I'm okay with a little bit of volatility. So I'll go with T. Higgins here. Following T. Higgins, Tyreek's off the board, Jaden Daniels off the board, James Cook, Joe Burrow, Marvin Harrison, unfortunately, is off the board. There goes Kittle, Hampton, McLaurin, Mike Evans is off the board, and Devontae Adams. Okay, so I'm actually happy that I grabbed a wide receiver then because a bunch of superstar wide receivers went off the board. Um, so at the quarterback position, which again, this is zero RB strategy. This would be that's the idea. You're trying to get ahead. So Tommy and I have some great quarterbacks that we could take some shots on later on in the draft. However, given that the tier of the Burrow, Daniels, Hurts tier, considering that there's still a guy on the board there, for the sake of the strategy, I think I'm going to end up going with Hurts. But just to point out, um, in terms of zero RB, there's some guys starting to be around this area where you can take a look at, but I haven't fully filled out the rest of my team yet there. So I think what I'm going to do, considering that, and there's a lot of these wide receivers who I'd really love to get my hands on, I'll grab Jalen Hurts now, get that out the way, take a positional advantage at quarterback.
Well, I
So
greatly appreciate you taking Jalen Hurts there because and also I'm really happy that Alvin Kamara came off the board to Team Five. With also obviously DJ Moore coming off the board as well too. Because I was leaning towards taking my fourth running back, but this kind of positions myself needing to really think about the wide receiver position because now we're talking about, yeah, Chuba Hubbard is a really good running back, being a full point PPR, needing more depth, to start depth at wide receiver or tight end, that pass catching position. I need to start really thinking about that. I have really, really good depth right now at running back, but, now I got to really start my wide receiver game and balancing out my roster. So, looking at basically what's there, you have Rashee Rice, you have DK Metcalf, you have Cortland Sutton, you have Devonta Smith. I'm really looking towards now a more stabilized, what I believe is going to be a wide receiver one for the year. There's two people on that list outside of Rashee Rice, based on his barring his suspensions and whatever, that I really feel are going to have a tremendous year. DK Metcalf, Cortland Sutton. Now, in this position right here, I think one player potentially can fall to me if I hold on to it because of the running backs that need to come off the board and some of these other positional players. But I'm going to go with more of the certainty and more of the structured system that's there and what we've seen last year. And I'm going to take Cortland Sutton with this pick as my wide receiver one. Now, unfortunately, those two players I was really, really good with did come off the board. Rashee Rice came off the board. Metcalf came off the board, and then running backs came off the board of Walker, Connor, Laporta came off the board, and also Joe Mixon came off the board a little early, but it's okay. I think he's going to drop in ADP as this month goes on. And so now I'm looking at obviously a positional player that I need to fill another wide receiver position, or it could be obviously that tight end position. But again, I need more depth at wide receiver based on my strategy to start this draft. So I'm gonna really just sit on that wide receiver position and continue my trend here. I love Devonta Smith. Um, I think he's gonna have a really good year. I think he's gonna have a nice bounce back year. But there's a player sitting there that I think, based on system, he'll have a little bit more chemistry, and he has a little bit more chemistry with his quarterback. His quarterback actually, based on these, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts. Jared Goff has thrown more touchdowns in I think the past 4 years than those guys. So. There's a player, Jameson Williams, that didn't play a full season last year. He played what was it? He played technically 15 games, so he missed 2 games. Jamison Williams is going to have a nice rebound year. I think Jamison Williams should start as my wide receiver too. After that, Devonta Smith goes, Zay Flowers goes, and Billy's on the clock.
Yeah, for me, this pick is easy, not only because I'm really high on him for this year, but also it fits into the strategy of what we're doing here. Let's get some explosiveness. Let's build out the wide receivers. We're going to go Xavier Worthy here. To me, it was easy. He was the next on the clock in terms of ADP also. So following Xavier Worthy, Mahomes
All
is
the
off the
running backs are
board.
coming off the board.
So Chuba, who's definitely a late round, who's always a late round shot. Pacheco's off the board. Montgomery, Harvey, who I'm not as high on. Hunter's off the board. Hawkinson, Pickens, Kelsey, Waddle, and now I'm back on the clock. So now at this point, I really should start taking a look at some. I really should start taking a look at some running backs. So I'm not obligated. Again, it's a zero RB strategy. There's ways of making it work. However, excuse me. Uh, One thing that you should keep in mind with zero RB strategy is the goal of it is to fill in those running back spots with guys who you know are going to get volume, guys that are starters on their team. And again, starters can be found later on in the draft. They're not going to be as good as the guys that you get higher up, but they're there. So, case in point, some good late round shots here. I could already see a few of them on my board. I have no desire to see who might make it back to me. I'm going to take Aaron Jones right off the board, starting running back for the Minnesota Vikings. That'll be my first running back here. Following him, Quinshawn Judkins is off, Travion Henderson, and now Mr. Lang's on the clock.
Yeah, so I need to continue my wide receiver room trend. Now, there's one player that we've obviously been very, very kind of shy on talking about this year because of the quarterback situation. But I will say this, in New Orleans, when Chris Olave is healthy, he does do great things. He's pretty much the only wide receiver there, and he's going to be targeted a lot this year. There's 2 players that I'm looking at right now between picking as my wide receiver 3, and the first one is basically Chris Olave. The second one is Calvin Ridley. Um, there's a little bit more of a stable situation in the wide receiver room. Sorry, in the quarterback room in Tennessee right now with what's going on with Ward. Cam Ward is holding himself like a true professional. He's the first one in the meeting room. He's the last one in the meeting room. He's focused. He's dialed in. But I do think that Calvin Ridley actually will fall to me in the 7th round. So I'm going to take Chris Olave here with it's a semi-risky pick, but with the 6'9" pick, I think it's a solid potential play for me to have some depth at that wide receiver room for what I started with. So I took Chris Olave there. DeAndre Swift goes. Tony Pollard goes, McMillan goes, Jordan Suspension Addison goes, our favorite
Suspension
Brian
Addison.
Robinson goes, and then Jerry
Ah,
Jeudy gets off the board, and I'm back on the clock. And as I said, I love Chris Godwin. He is technically the next wide receiver that I would pick in this position, but based on the injury and him coming slow into the season, again, he's going to be dropping off our tier slightly. I do like what the situation that's happening in Tennessee with Calvin Ridley. I think he's going to have a better situation quarterback. He's going to have more deep throws. He's going to have more, positional. He's going to have more successful wide receiver plays this year. Let's put it that way. Instead of it being Mr. Mayo that's throwing the ball. So Calvin Ridley is coming off the board.
yeah.
After that, Baker Mayfield goes, and then Bo Nix goes, and Billy is on the clock.
Yeah, I should point out. So I had a bit of a reaction there because definitely some running backs that were kind of these late round shots, good for zero RB strategies, are they came off. So DeAndre Swift came off, and Brian Robinson, who's been me and Tommy's darling basically for late round running backs, has come off the board, and that makes the situation for me a little bit interesting at running back. I've already got Aaron Jones. I would definitely like to start continuing to fill out my wide receiver situation, and I have positional advantages at both quarterback and tight end. So But I have to consider what my other running back is going to be. Remember what we were saying, you only have to fill in a spot, but you want to get at least a starter in there. And we're kind of getting into the realm of like, who's starting, who's not, who's going to be getting volume, who isn't. So I just want to point out, just from a strategy perspective, I picked up Aaron Jones. I'm seeing later on in the ADP here. So Jordan Mason's available. I'm definitely going to be looking to get him. So that basically locks up the Vikings backfield and it kind of guards against what would otherwise be an injury. I'll try to get him on the way back, but in the interim, I'm looking at Javonte Williams, who, if nothing else, is going to have volume. Jalen Warren, who, the whole business with Caleb Johnson, I think, like we said, I think it's overplayed with the rookie running backs that everybody seems to think is just going to take over. So I'm feeling better about Jalen Warren. Najee Harris is on the board there. I am worried about the eye situation. Otherwise, I would be all in on Najee Harris. Just everybody seems to think Omari, like we just said, they all think the rookies are going to be taking over. Cam Scadaboo has been looking great in camp, but Trace is the starter, and Cam Scadaboo just got injured. However, I kept all in all, we do believe that ETN is severely undervalued. ETN is going to be my pick here. The issue is that do you believe that the last year and a half has been commensurate with what we've been seeing from ETN, or does he get a chance to get back on track? He's still the guy. I don't
I think
think
it's a solid
Bigsby is.
pick.
I don't
I
think Bigsby is the the getting in the way of this. I think Jacksonville bounces back a little bit. Yeah, we'll just go with that. So after ETN, Adunze, Caleb Johnson's now off the board. Jared Goff, Khalil Shakir, Kyler Murray. By the way, we should point out. I mean,
oh, Debo.
yeah, Jacoby Myers is off the board. Unfortunately, Chris Godwin's off. Tyrone Tracy, Cooper Cup, and now I'm back on the clock here. So I got me my two starting running backs. I got three quality wide receivers. I got a positional advantage at quarterback and at a tight end. So now I'm going to be looking to try to bolster that wide receiver room. Just glancing at the running backs, though, like I said, I'm not going to be that crazy. I could just, I'm not going to be crazy about here. I want to go back to wide receiver and fill out the strategy. So we're looking at Diggs. Diggs, who we feel good about from a target perspective. This is full PPR. Jawan Jennings, definitely a really good option here. I know Tommy disagrees. He's on the Pearsall train, but again, we'll see if Pearsall even plays. Golden, who I don't believe in, over Jaden Reed. I think Jaden Reed's going to be the guy in full PPR. Let's assume that Diggs actually plays. I'm going to go with Diggs for full PPR. Uh, Following that, Evan Ingram, Jonnu Smith, and now Mr. Lang's on the board.
Yeah, so I'm in a pretty interesting position. So obviously I have three running backs, three great running backs right now, and then four wide receivers. Two of those four are little sketch, but again, I think in the situation they'll be good fill-ins when needed or flex plays. So with that being said, I'm still not feeling high on taking a tight end or quarterback at this present moment. Um, I'm looking at potentially to bolster my running back room or but basically bolster my wide receiver room. And based on the situation, obviously, because of me feeling a little wishy-washy with my wide receiver three and four, I probably want to add a little bit more depth to that. So there's a couple players on my list, and based on the situation that's happening in Tampa Bay, this may be semi of a reach right now, but if I want a player, I got to go get him. He's a rookie wide receiver from the Ohio State University, Emeka Ibuka. I think I think that this is going to be a really, really nice start. He's not somebody I'm going to be starting week one, right? He's going to be somebody that I'm going to need to sit and watch for, at least a week or two before I can say, all right, he might be in contention to actually play flex, depending on situation. But I'm going to draft Emeka Ibuka in this position right here. And I think that he has really good chemistry happening with Mr. Baker Mayfield. After that, Jalen Warren goes, Javonte Williams goes, my favorite running back of all time. Um, Jaden Reed goes, which I'm happy to take Abuka over Jaden Reed right now. Um, Mark Andrews goes, Jawan Jennings goes, and my darling Mr. Warren goes as well too. So I am back on the clock, and I'm starting to really look at this running back position just to have a little bit more depth in that position, and then I could really just start filling in some areas of necessities when it comes down to my onesie positions, as we discussed earlier this week. So the running back room is getting slightly scarce, but there are well, actually, there's technically three players that I'm a little, four players. Oh, okay. Four players that I feel fairly good about. We're talking
Yeah.
PPR here. If I'm going to lean in a position, I'm going to go towards that pass catching running back. Tajay Spears, very, very good year last year when he was in there. I think that he's in a better position with the quarterback play. I think that obviously they're in more of a 50-50 split with Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard is not a value in this draft this year. I think value wise, Tajay Spears. Then you got J.K. Dobbins, who is in the doghouse running back room of Sean Payton. So he again being a running back four on my roster, he's not really going to see the field all that much. Potentially on bye weeks, injuries, so on and so forth. There's two other players that potentially could be starting running backs. Jordan Mason to Billy's running back one, basically Aaron Jones. Might be somebody that, obviously Billy might be targeting on the way back because of obviously needing that position right there. I'm not going to do that to him. He has an interesting running back room, so I might just leave that for him to decide on. But then the other guy is Ramondre Stevenson. Ramondre Stevenson, he's going to get run this year. He's going to get plays. He also is a pass catching running back as well too. But I think based on the situation, I like Tajay Spears a little bit better in the situation that they're going to be playing a lot from behind. I think the New England Patriots could be controlling some games here and there, but they're not going to win a lot of games, but they're going to be able to control some games a little bit more. I think the Tennessee Titans are not going to have such great of a defense. They're going to have to throw the ball a lot. They're going to have to run the ball a lot. So I'm actually banking a lot on Tennessee right now with having Calvin Ridley and then also adding Tajay Spears to my roster. So Tajay Spears is added.
That's such a long explanation.
I'm sorry. There's a lot of players right there.
Following Tajay, we've got Matthew Golden finally off the board. We've got Najee Harris, and now I'm on the board. So Najee Harris, I was eyeing him up, no pun intended, for him on the team. Now look, I could grab Jordan Mason here and basically lock down the entire Vikings backfield, which is a perfectly viable thing to do with a zero RB strategy. Um, because now normally I wouldn't be really doing that because you kind of want to take multiple shots and aim for upsides. Let me just explain here. Um, there's the Jordan Mason. J.K. Dobbins would be the main competition for that because you can say what we want about R.J. Harvey. J.K. Dobbins is going to be getting the work in the beginning of the year, uh, despite the doghouse situation that Tommy mentioned. On the board here, we've also got Rashad White, who's going to be getting work. He was a top 24 running back last year. I know everybody seems to think that Irving just completely supplanted him. He's going to be getting work. Nick Chubb, for all the reasons that we just said earlier, I was going to be more crazy about, and I'm just not now. A little bit farther down, Tank Bigsby. I don't need to be locking up the Jacksonville backfield. I think I'd rather uh, do horrible things to myself before doing that. And then after that, man, it just starts getting bad. Like you've got the more backups, more things after that. So I'm not feeling crazy about it. So
Go Cam. Go Cam.
on the wide receiver side, I'm not. I feel this is what I wanted to mention. I feel great about Josh Downs this year, really great. Um, but I think I need to grab. I think given what my strategy was, I'm okay locking up the Vikings backfield. They're going to be a good team. And I think Jordan Mason's very good. So I'm going to lock that up. And that basically locks up my running backs. And I don't think I'm going to get Downs on the way back. Maybe I'm really lucky. We'll see. No, I'm not. So following Jordan Mason, Ricky Pearsall's off the David Njoku, Ricky Pearsall, Josh Downs, Cam Scatterbo, Justin Herbert, Brandon Ayuk, Dalton Kincaid off the board, Darnell Mooney, Colson Loveland, and now Zach Charbonnet. I'm back. So only a few wide receivers did come off the board. That leaves some options for me to take some shots here. So some interesting names. Michael Pittman, I'm not going to be crazy about. Keon Coleman has a lot of upside, and given the Khalil Shakir injury, maybe could be good, but maybe Khalil comes back. Jaden Higgins is a good option So we haven't really been talking about him that much. Who's the second wide receiver in Houston, Tommy?
Christian Kirk.
Is it? That's sort of
Christian Kirk.
I know that's sort of the point. Some of their names here, a lot of these are like the more upside kind of names. You've got Marvin Mims, young guy out of Denver, Luther Burden. I mean, you got a couple of these names. Yeah, there's the Christian Kirk name, Rashad Bateman, and you've got Hollywood Brown, and then of course Jalen McMillan, who I think is criminally underrated, but I don't need to take him here. I could probably take him later. So with my fifth wide receiver, and I'm not going to be. I actually could take Dobbins here as a secondary pick. You know what? I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to grab some Dobbins here. I'll take the early volume, and
Oh,
and then there goes Tommy's quarterback shot. Say this happens, so this is good for
I
everybody.
know. Well, it's funny because I was actually going to bring something up. And I was going to say that Sleeper, based on their AI, they don't double up on quarterback this early in the game. Well, I guess they do. Because, yeah, that's a hurtful one right there. That's rough. Anyway, that's what happens in drafts.
Ah,
You get some people that say, "I need two quarterbacks early. I need three
sure,
potentially I'll add a third quarterback because
whatever.
screw the rest of
And,
the league."
and we want to point out this is such an. I'm glad this happened because
Yep.
we've been identifying Kyler, but to a much greater degree, Dak Prescott as a late round. This is our value. That's our value shot. But here's the deal: if somebody takes him like a couple spots over ADP, then he's gone. So you might need to, maybe take a round to just make sure that you got him. Tommy saw what happened,
Yep.
and that's it. He's gone.
Yeah. So on this position, I was actually taking Dak here. Obviously, he went two spots before me. But I'm going to take his counterpart of tight end right now because there's no really rush to take a quarterback that I'm going to have to decide on. Jake Ferguson, I believe that he's going to have a tremendous year this year. And obviously, with the depth at wide receiver, adding George Pickens, I think that this is a great, great pick and great, great year, especially with a hopeful healthy Prescott throwing that ball. Jake Ferguson's on my board. Then after that, then after that, Ramondre Stevenson goes, Purdy goes, CJ Stroud goes, Higgins goes, Coleman goes, and Pittman goes. All right. This quarterback, actually, I was looking at him before. I was looking at him. Purdy was not really on my radar. The one player that I now need to really take at this point, it's obviously between Jordan Love and it's obviously between Justin Fields. Um, I personally, based on our tier system, we do feel Justin Fields is a better quarterback fantasy wise than he will be over Jordan Love. Jordan Love's going to throw the ball. I mean, again, he's going to throw the ball a lot. There's a big issue obviously with wide receivers and pass catchers on that offense, but because he spreads the ball so much. Um, I don't think he's going to have mistake-free football. That's where they're going to lean the ball towards the run a lot more. But I think the same thing with Justin Fields. But Justin Fields is going to run the ball himself as well too. He's going to get some yards. He's going to get some fantasy play on the ground as well too. So at this position, I'm going to be taking Justin Fields with this my quarterback one. I potentially may want to look later in the draft, last round, to take a streamer option just as a back end, just in case Justin Fields doesn't start week one. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to play, but Justin Fields, I feel, is a good baseline if you're going to wait over and let teams take their second quarterback. Justin Fields could be a good pick there. After that, Tucker Kraft goes, Goddard goes, and Billy's on the clock.
I'm on the clock. I want to point out from a like a target perspective, I would really love to get me some Jalen McMillan on the board here, but I could probably wait until the next round. So I'll see who I could get before that. Trey Harris, he's got the big upside, but now with Keenan Allen, I feel like it's just so far down the board. Rashid Shaheed, who's throwing the ball in New Orleans? If Jameis gets traded there, then I'll be interested. Mims, still on the board here. I'm not feeling it. Cortland Sutton's going to swallow up all the targets. Christian Kirk is an option. So we just said, who's the second option in Houston? Is it the rookie? Is it Christian Kirk? I think, Christian Kirk's not going away. Rashad Bateman for upside in Baltimore. Again, with the likely situation, um, it's going to be a bit more of a consolidation of targets there, although it's so inconsistent. Looking down the board on the wide receiver side, you've got Adam Thielen. I don't know how he's still playing. Hollywood Brown. I've already got Xavier Worthy. I don't need to double up. So yeah, I'm targeting McMillan. At this point, any other running backs? I could probably take Rashad White for just some sheer volume there, and then I'll look to try to get maybe Jalen McMillian on the way back because that's how I'm feeling it. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. I'll take my shot on Rashad White and see how the volume's looking. Again, everybody's got such a foregone conclusion about how much volume Bucky Irving's going to get. All right, so following Rashad White, there goes the Kyle Pitts situation. Jordan Love's now off the board to Tommy's dismay, even though he got Fields. So the
That's
Eagles'
fine.
defense is now off the board. The Broncos, the Steelers. So some people are going defense early. Earlier picks there. Trey Harris is off the board. Shaheed, Jaden Blue, Luther Bird, and Drake May. And now I'm back on the board. So now after in my last one, two, three, four, five, six picks, I've gone five running backs. So I'm definitely going to be hitting wide receiver here. And, I won't wait any longer. I'll grab my McMillian here. So I've got two picks left. I'll leave defense obviously for the end. So I'll grab my McMillian now. Uh, Following McMillian goes Christian Kirk and then Tank Bigsby. I just wanted to mention we're going to spend a lot of time talking about Tampa Bay when we talk about the final rankings. The Chris Godwin news really did throw a monkey wrench into how we think about all this stuff. Um, you got to remember that they've got four quality wide receivers in Tampa: Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Emeka Ukuba, I'm saying his name right,
Mecca Ibuka.
and Jalen McMillian. So even if we think that this is kind of like Mike Evans' swan song situation, there's a lot of guys there and a lot of mouths to feed. So I just want to like a lot of it is going to be a little bit randomy, but we'll see how that shakes out. So yeah, Tommy's on the clock now.
Yeah, so based on everything, I mean, I'm not really big on taking two quarterbacks unless the roster spots show it. Obviously, I'm anticipating Justin, basically Fields to start week one, all right, and basically be my primary starter for now to see how things are going to happen. Things could change over time, and I could obviously the last player, the weakest link on my roster, I'll just drop basically to pick up, obviously a second quarterback, but depending on situation. But I think right now, based on value, I have to take a player that is going to have a potential role on my roster. Again, I have five wide receivers. I do want to add a little bit more depth to that wide receiver room. Um, he's not the most beautiful positional player, but based on his targets last year of 140 targets, my last wide receiver I'm going to add to my roster is Wan'Dale Robinson. Great year last year. I think he's in a better position this year. I don't think he's going to see 140 targets, but I think he could see anywhere from about 100 to 110. He catches his balls. He doesn't get 50 plus yards. He gets maybe 20 yards a game, but again, we're talking about targets, talking about receptions. You get points on receptions. Um, JJ McCarthy goes, Mims goes, Garinda goes, the Ravens defense goes, Commanders defense, 49ers defense goes as well too, and I'm on the clock. I am actually going to I'm going to talk a defense that I love to start the year. It's not talking about the Vikings defense, the Texans defense, the Bills defense, which I do love the Bills defense. But let's just put it this way: like if we're talking a little bit more depth, I'm going to talk. If we're doing like a 15 round, this is when pretty much the defense will just start coming off the board a little bit more aggressively. I'm punting. Let's just say if I'm punting the defense position, week one, I'm really feeling good about Arizona. The Cardinals
Yep,
defense
I agree
is a
for sure.
great defense to start week one if you're going to be streaming defenses for the year.
Yeah, and why don't you explain why? Because it's
Because
such a
they are
good pick.
playing the New Orleans Saints against Tyler Show. Then the Vikings go, the Texans go, and Billy's on the clock for his last pick.
Yeah, so we should probably mention that, like, why, like, defense is from a thing. Like, obviously, the Eagles are a ridiculous defense, although their matchup in week one is not the best. There's a lot of these defenses that are really great that their matchups aren't so good. like the Eagles is there, the Ravens are there, the Bills are there. I mean, the Bills and the Ravens play each other. The Eagles play the Cowboys. They're going to be a high-powered offense. The Broncos is great. The Broncos, I think, might be one of the best picks in the whole draft from a defensive perspective because they're a great defense and they've got a great week one. Steelers too. The Steelers play the Jets. God knows how they're going to be, and the Broncos play the Titans at home, and the Broncos are a good defense. But here we are right now. So like Tommy mentioned, the Cardinals play the Saints. So at this point, I'm basically looking at matchups. Probably the two other best matchups would be the Bengals against the Browns, but under no circumstances am I starting the Bengals defense, as horrific they are. But I am looking at one of the other games that I'm looking at here is the Giants and the Commanders. So the Commanders are playing the Giants. They're home against the Giants. We are not that. I mean, as to Tommy's dismay here, we're not feeling that good about them. They're a perfectly good option to pick against the Giants. We'll be pointing this out when we start getting into forecasting about like the over unders and stuff. But I'm feeling good about the Commanders as it goes against the Giants right now. So I'll go with the Commanders if I could find them. Oh no, they've been taken. Oh my
Yeah, they've been
goodness.
taken. So you've been talking a lot about the Commanders that are already
Oh,
on Team Two's roster.
oh my goodness. Well, at that point now, some of the best matchups are out the way. So let's see. Are the Rams, are they off the board?
Just take the Buffalo Bills.
I'm not taking the Bills because they're playing the Ravens. It's going to be 40-40 week one. Um, the Yeah, we have the LA Rams. The Rams are home against the Texans. Again, the Texans are not the best, and the Rams are pretty good. We'll go with the Rams. So,
And let me just put it this way. So like we just did 13 rounds. That's a full draft right there based on these the draft positions. But Nick Chubb was not drafted. And also Jerome Ford, who we spoke about today, was not drafted.
right.
So there, if you look at some of these rosters, like Team Six, who their starting running back is Quentin Judkins, and then basically has Najee Harris, and then they actually didn't add any more depth at running back. So Quentin Judkins is not starting week one. They're going to have to make a roster spot based on how they drafted. They're going to have to drop a player like Christian Kirk to pick up, or they're double tight ends that basically have Goddard and Ingram. One of those tight ends is going to find the waiver wire. So this is a big thing where you just basically start seeing how teams have drafted, where teams have made mistakes during drafts as well too, and you capitalize on these opportunities over time, right? So like, focus on, your draft, but then after post draft, you have to see who's still out there potentially for waivers, and where mistakes could have been made because you can make that quick switch where you could pick somebody up, for waiver and capitalize on really tanking another team.
Yeah, and I should point out too, like I think we talked about the late round guys, like why I didn't go for Ford over, let's say I picked that Rashad White, that last thing. So Jerome Ford was on my board there. However, at that point, I had even in a zero RB strategy, I had already gotten like three or four different running backs, and so I was trying to go for a bit more. Hey, let's just see some upside.
Hmm.
And even though Ford, in a vacuum, I would rank higher than Rashad White just on sheer volume. From an upside perspective, no. Obviously, there's more upside there with White. If even Ford's the starter on an awful, awful, awful team. Rashad White is the quote unquote co-starter on a great team. And if Bucky Irving were to go down or would have missed a little bit of time, there's a gigantic amount of upside there.
Yeah.
So you have to look at how your team construction. Tommy actually did this a lot of times during the draft. I mean, he was looking at his team. He was saying, "Hey, I've got this. I need this based on this." Like even though we kind of went into the draft with an idea just to show everybody, hey, I'm going to go zero RB, I'm going to go heavy RB. We're kind of staying water within the draft to be able to show people, like, hey, this
Correct.
guy's available, this guy isn't, and you kind of have to do a similar thing. Um, something that I did in the draft was I ended up, and it's not like I went in there with the thought, but it just kind of fell to me where I kind of doubled up on the Vikings running backs. And it works out because we're feeling good about the situation, and because I didn't reach on it, it just kind of fell to me. I didn't overdo it. Case in point, a lot of people are scared about going Gibbs, and then at some point later in the draft, if they have an opportunity to get Montgomery. What we've been saying all the time is there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but you don't reach to do it. Like if it were to fall, if you were playing your tiers in ADP. How happy are you with how your draft went like that?
I liked it, to be honest. Um, I'm not. I'm more when I draft. I'm more of a balanced player. As a manager, I like balancing my drafts to make sure I have equal to each side. But based on this year, I do like how the wide receiver room kind of is pretty depth. There's a lot of depth with the wide receiver room. As we talked earlier today, sorry, earlier this week, there is a little bit more depth at the wide receiver room based on value, but you can't go so far. That's why I had to stop at the third round, after the third round, and then start really compiling my wide receivers and getting some opportunities there. So I like how my draft lined up. I would have liked it a lot better if I had Dak Prescott on my roster,
Right.
but that's how drafts go.
Yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, I've done zero RB before in different forms or iterations or hero RB or whatever.
Hmm.
Like given the fact that it's a single flex, I wasn't really particularly crazy about doing it the way that it is. However, um, looking at how things shaped up, I think it went perfectly fine if that's the strategy you want to go to. And I managed to find some good late round gems and running backs. So I mean, these are viable strategies. Um, and it just matters with where you're at. If I had to choose in a vacuum which I would rather go, it really depends on how the first round goes because that kind of dictates the rest of your draft. Case in point, if let's say a bunch of running backs came off, like all the running backs came off the board before me at position 7, then I definitely would have gone that route. But
Yep.
at the first position, I mean, I had access to Johnson and McCaffrey. So, but again, we showed it to everybody, and we're happy. We're happy to do so. So there we go. There's some mock draft action.
Yep.
We got some good stuff coming up with you guys later on in the off season here, and we're getting real close to the season, so we are very, very excited. Closing thoughts, Mr. Lang?
Yeah, like I said, we'll be dropping two shows a week in this August time frame. Basically, one is going to be a mock draft, and one is going to be a strategy show, depending on talking about whatever the subject will be. Billy, do you want to tell everybody what the next subject's going to be next week?
Sure. Next week we're going to be talking like like as opposed to what else we covered. We already covered the math and draft strategy from a quantitative perspective. Now we're going to start to be talking about qualitative stuff, all the things that are a little bit less intangible. Things like strength of schedule, things like offensive line strength,
Yep.
things like players going into a contract year.
Yep.
Anything that would be quote unquote narrative street. So we'll get to that this week.
Yep. And again, we truly appreciate everybody that takes the time to watch our videos. If you could please like, subscribe, ring that bell. More community members to our group, more winners you have in your fantasy football league. So let's really do a deep dive this August and win our leagues. Win our drafts.
Let's do it. Thank you,
All
everybody.
right. Thank you.